Okay, Nye, thanks for joining us for the World in Motion lockdown video library. First of all, how are you? How's the lockdown been for you? Looks like you're back at mum and dad's there, so I'm guessing you've spent most of it in Wales. But how have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, Birdman. Thanks for having me on. Ticking over, trying to stay busy, just like everyone else. As you said, I'm back home in Wales, which is obviously a nice touch first and foremost. I haven't spent too much time at home, so
God's country.
My mother, absolutely. My mother's especially excited, so it's been nice to be home and spend a bit of time with the family. Just trying to stay busy. Obviously working on the old rehab for my knee, trying not to pull my hair out too much.
Yeah, you obviously had a nasty injury over the winter. How are things developing and progressing for that? I mean, for you, I guess the lockdown couldn't have come at a better time, really, because it turns out you might not miss any games now, as opposed to potentially missing the whole season.
Yeah, I've chatted to a few boys about it and yourself, and I must be the first professional sportsman of all time to have a full ACL reconstruction and not miss a single day's training, let alone a game. To be honest, I've always been, incredibly lucky in that sense. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything or falling behind. So, look, it was tough at the time. It's the first time I've ever had a proper injury of any sort, really, throughout even age group, sports. And obviously the first thought that comes to mind is kind of panic and, where's this going to leave me? Am I going to be kind of, 9 months behind everyone else, which is in professional sport is a huge time. I almost enjoyed the break initially. It was nice to kind of, again, spend a bit of time at home, have a complete break away from cricket. Unlike other sports, it kind of ends up being a year-round gig, as you well know yourself. We play our season, and then, as tough as it sounds, we spend our winters away in other sunny places, like Australia and South Africa, through most winters, trying to carry on, and you end up kind of rolling seasons back to back to back. So I kind of embraced that break to start with, but once I was kind of back into the rehab and, a 9 till 5 grind on weights and then not a lot else, it's pretty tough going. But, the part I thought I was going to struggle with most was obviously once the boys were up and about and playing games and, traveling around the country and doing their thing. I think I was going to really struggle kind of being stuck back in, HQ training by myself. So, luckily for me, I haven't missed out on any of that so far. So, touch fingers, I'll be back and ready to go if we do get any sport this summer.
Yeah, and I guess for you, somebody who's still relatively young, people forget that, I think, because you've been around now for a time. You've never really had an extended break. You've never been injured, as you've mentioned, and this for you, I guess, will be that first long break from the game, and almost perhaps a time for you to reflect on how things have gone so far. You were involved with England through the age grades, just right from, an early age. And that's all obviously quite intense, as a young lad, spending winters in training camps. And then you obviously have the summer programs, so for you, I guess it's a time to maybe think about however, a period of reflection to think how everything's gone so far and how when we're all allowed back, to some kind of normality, where you take your career next.
Yeah, absolutely. You think you're spot on. That kind of just being able to have those couple of weeks where I know there's nothing in the back of my mind thinking, oh, do you know what? Should I be hitting a couple of balls? Should I be keeping my eye in? Should I be doing this, doing that? To have that actual, medical note is literally sit down on your ass for 4 weeks and just relax and let yourself get better. I think it was a blessing in disguise to some extent. It's obviously easy to sit here and say that now when I'm not missing any sport as well. But I think most guys across professional sport is probably in a similar boat in this sense. Just having that, forced break is probably going to be beneficial to a lot of guys. I think they've really enjoyed it. But yeah, it's as you said, from the age groups being involved with the England stuff and, academies, and as all elite sport is, my half terms and weekends and stuff, ever since I was kind of 14, 15, I gave up. Obviously it's hardly a tough sacrifice in the scheme of things, but it does build up, and having this kind of time to just reflect and just focus on getting myself better is, I hope to think it's a blessing in disguise. And looking back, especially on last season, I think the toughest thing about the injury was I felt like I was really moving forward. Obviously, we made the move happen to Hampshire, and it went pretty much as well as I could have. I played in a final within a month or two of being there. Did really well in red ball cricket, broke my way into the team, which was obviously the plan from the start. And obviously had a decent T20 tournament, but obviously improvements to be made there. But I felt like the move went as well as it could have, kind of pushing me towards the next step, which is obviously a England Lions cap and hopefully a full international at some point. But just being around the guys down in Hampshire, around boys who've been in and around that setup for years, from full internationals and World Cup winners as of last year to guys just breaking their way into the Lions team. It was quite a refreshing move for me. And I think, for everyone who knows me and everyone saw me play last year, I think it was quite evident in my game that it all helped me move forward, really.
Yeah. And how have you settled into life, on the South Coast? And, obviously, it's never easy when you leave Glamorgan. Not many do it, and it was a brave thing that you did, because you could have stayed and carried on, but you wanted the fresh challenge and decided to take it on down there. How have you found settling into a new club? And you're obviously, you're a strong lad mentally. You got a good resilience anyway, so it was never going to be a huge problem in my mind for you. But how has that transition gone for you down there?
Yeah, I think, again, as I'm sure you'd understand, and people who aren't up to date too much with their cricket, obviously Glamorgan's the one Welsh county, so I think everyone views that as playing for your country. So for me, it wasn't just leaving a club and going somewhere down the road. It was quite literally leaving a country behind, and a club that's kind of brought me up and given me every opportunity. So it was a real tough decision, and I'd like to think it was probably a bit tougher for me than some other guys in some perspective, purely because of that. Leaving Wales and I said Southampton and the sunny South Coast is hardly a tough place to go and live, but obviously it took a lot of thinking and a lot of consideration to make that move and make that jump. But fortunately for me, again, coming through the age group stuff with England, I had loads of mates down there already. Guys like Mason Crane, Joe Weatherly, Brad Taylor, we'd all played for years and years. And to be honest, they were some of my best mates through cricket anyway, just purely by the time we spent together and, traveling the world. And then, we play Hampshire. We play each other kind of up to 6 times a year, which is obviously pretty rare in most sports. So you kind of get to know the guys around the block eventually. So it was really easy to settle in. They're a great club, great dressing room. And as I'm sure, again, if you're aware of your cricket, the facilities down there are second to none. As I'm sure they're about to be made use of now in the current biosecure environments and all, et cetera, et cetera. With 2 grounds, a first-rate training facilities, hotel, golf course. There's not much you could have asked for. And then, looking at the backroom staff and the players alongside that, it was a bit of a no-brainer, really. I think Hampshire is the most successful white ball side in history, or very close to, I believe. And felt like they were moving in the right way to challenge it in the 4-day cricket as well, which again we showed last year. So when they kind of came in for me and it all was starting to become a bit of reality, it was a real honour and privilege to be considered for the move in the first place.
Yeah. And did you find playing in a new environment down there, there always seemed to be this pressure on you when at Glamorgan that you were you almost going to be the next captain in Glamorgan. You were going to be the next Welsh lad to go on and play for England, and all of this came with the territory for you. Did you find that going into an environment like Hampshire, where you were just one of a number of potential next internationals, and you almost nobody knows who you are to a degree, did you find that helped you almost settling in and then going on to play as well as you did, particularly in red ball? Because red ball, you really exceeded everybody's expectations, even the coaches down at Hampshire, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it worked both ways in the sense, as you said, I left the kind of pressure of playing for Glamorgan and the kind of Welsh nature of it, to the new pressure of I'm competing with 5 or 6 guys for one spot, which we didn't have the luxury of, unfortunately, at my time at Glamorgan. And it was about coming into a new environment where people knew I could compete. And on my day, I like to think I'm as good as anyone. And it was going into a new environment and showing them that day in, day out. And really pushing my way into the team, and that was exactly what my cricket needed, and I think it really benefited from that. I think it'd be silly for most sportsmen to say they don't want to have some sort of pressure and be in the limelight a little bit. It's the pressure that I enjoy. I want to be the next Welsh player to play for England. That's one of my massive driving kind of factors behind my career, and it's something I've always been privileged to have. I think as a sportsman, if you're not being talked about like that, I don't feel like you're at the top of your game to some extent. But yeah, I think it worked out perfectly. And again, that switch in pressure from I've just got to batter the door down and get my way into the team and hold down my spot in a team of pretty much full internationals when we're fully fit was a real challenge. But it was also nice to come out the end of that thinking, do you know what, I can really mix it with these guys.
Yeah. And there were stages where the wicket-keeping gloves made an appearance.
They did. Probably too much in some people's opinions.
I always remember playing a game against Mumbles way back when Pante were in.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a picture floating about social media somewhere, if I remember correctly.
Taken by Mr. Donald Senior. And I always remember you behind the stumps, and you had your helmet on, and you had this kind of aura around you, without wanting to blow too much smoke up your backside, but you had this kind of
job, isn't it?
It was like a bit of an arrogance, I'll have to say, which is fine as well. But and you were in white. We obviously played in white, but you had these trainers on that were spiked, and I immediately took umbrage to this. Liking to dress classically.
Were we officially together at this point? As a working relationship?
No. I didn't know you were. I thought, this is the youngster supposed to be quite good. Well, he needs to change his shoes first and foremost. He did.
Yeah, good point.
But you know what? You set yourself apart from that point on, and I think that way you've got about yourself, where you've almost, it's a belief that no matter where you are or whoever you're playing against, that you'll come out on top. And I think that's a quality that not many have, and it's only credit to you. I think that you can that determination you've got is what will get you through, I'm sure, this injury as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that rings true in a lot of walks of life. It's about having that self-confidence where you can compete at any level and do your job the best of your abilities. And as I said, you can mix it with anyone. And I think, if you want to look into my psyche, is if I don't think I'm the best I can be, then no one else is going to think I'm that good either. So it's kind of trying to find that fine balance between obviously not being an absolute idiot and thinking you're far better than you are, but there's no point walking out into a sporting arena not confident in what you can do yourself. And I think obviously, I think that's really been tested. I think that's something I struggle with probably, the last season or two with Glammy, where I had a couple of poor patches. I think I lost that kind of confidence when I was walking out there thinking, do you know what, I'm going to better this bowling attack today. I kind of lost that, and it turned very much more internal, thinking, do you know what, really, am I as good as I thought I was, or as people think I am? I think I've kind of recovered that, and it's easier to do in a really good team environment. Obviously easier to do in a successful environment, but I think the important thing I've learned is being able to kind of keep on that steady level regardless of where my performance is. And that's ultimately what leads to more consistent results, as again, I kind of showed a little bit last year, especially in red ball. Yeah.
And coming through now as a youngster, as a Welsh youngster, how did you find that sort of the system and the coaches that you work with? Obviously, I know you work quite a lot with Darren Thomas as a youngster, and you talk sort of glowingly of how he helped your career or develop your career as a youngster. And then you obviously played for Glamorgan at a very young age and performed well on I think on debut you did well, didn't you, against Gloucester, was it?
Against Hampshire, actually, funny enough.
Against Hampshire, yeah. So how did you find coming through as a Welsh youngster in the pathway, and ultimately then going on to make your debut at such a young age for Glamorgan?
I think I was really lucky, first and foremost. I was involved in every age group from under 11 through to under 17 with Wales. I played South and West of England, and then England. I was on the academy really young, making my second team debut at 15, 16. I think I might have played minor counties at 14. So I was the good thing with cricket is because of the physical aspects of the game is I can compete with men from an early age. So I was playing first team cricket at 12 years old. Yeah. And there's something to be said, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of showing your worth against people 3 or 4 times your age, and guys at that elite level, you can compete with them even though you're younger. And I think I was really blessed to kind of have all those opportunities that I did. I got chucked in, potentially when I wasn't ready at some points, but I've always felt like, and I think something that's led me in good stead to this day is I always stepped up to the competition I was playing at and the level I was playing at. Once I was kind of moved up from, I think I was playing kind of, Wales under 17s at 13. Some people take that in a bad sense, especially when you're playing against them. And it's your job to rise up against that. And again, as I said, started playing second team cricket when you're playing against pros, especially back in the day. Glamorgan carried a really big squad, and we had county veterans playing minor counties. They couldn't even make it into the second team. It was a real privilege to be picked as that one guy there. But I also knew from that age, age is just a number. It's about putting performances up on the board. Whether I was 16 or I'm going to be 35, it's irrelevant if your numbers are up there. I got handed all the opportunities I could have asked for, and I'm grateful for everyone coming through. I think my game definitely changed once I started working with Darren, which I think was probably about under 15s. I think the best way I'd describe that is he kind of changed from, you get a lot of junior age group coaches who kind of teach you the basics and the technique, and the biggest switch was working with Darren, an ex-pro, was the kind of gamesmanship and the thought behind cricket is such a tactical game, from field placings to, what shots you're going to play against what bowlers. I think that's what really set me apart then, is kind of latching onto the back of that, and really, obviously there was some hard work and talent behind it, or I like to think so. But I think that's definitely what kick-started it. And I think most people who probably play with me or work with me at some point, I think they definitely say that's one of the strengths of my game, is kind of the tactical side and a little bit of leadership at that point as well.
Yeah. And did you enjoy, the teams that you've captained? Is that something that you enjoy, the extra pressure and obviously the concentration that's required, out on the field, but also throughout the game, even when you're batting, you need to be constantly thinking not only about your own game, but everybody else's as well.
Yeah, it's just something I do anyway when I'm standing in the field. Obviously, we can have some long, boring days, and it's my way of staying in the game, is kind of thinking about what I do. Would I bowl this guy? What field would I have? Looking at the batsman's grip technique. Where's he going to hit the ball? It's something that kind of flowed to me naturally, and I ended up captaining kind of all the age group sides in England, and I believe I was the youngest ever minor counties captain, I think, on paper somewhere. But it's something that came naturally. I love to do because my bowling's absolutely disgraceful. I'm not sure if you've ever even witnessed it, but whoever has can definitely back me up. And you can
leave that in the locker.
Absolutely. That's my second string to my bow to some extent. Is being able to kind of offer a little bit of insight and try and help the guys out, even when I'm not necessarily in a leadership role. Which again, across all sports, I think you kind of have those guys. You might have an elected leader who does the coin toss and puts the team sheet in, but in reality, it's usually a group of hopefully intellectual guys who know what they're talking about. So I like to think I'm in that group every now and again.
Yeah, and you've been working hard on your wicket keeping since the move.
Yeah, I did. Especially when the winter started, I started working with Michael Bates down there. Famous for his keeping skill. He's our keeping coach down at Hampshire, so I started getting in work there. Obviously kept a lot during the age groups, but once I hit kind of first team level at Glamorgan, I was in as a batter, and never had the chance to kind of hone my skills in that sense. But it's something I did all throughout the age groups, and I really enjoy doing. And so I've ended up, fortunately for me, Hampshire, my first short-term loan, which came about for the last month of the season, which was unexpected. I ended up putting the gloves on at some point for the first time in about 5 years as a substitute keeper. So there's been some new experiences, put it that way, since my time down on the South Coast. But it's something I definitely want to get my teeth stuck into more. And Hampshire, are really keen for me to kind of pursue that option. And, from a personal standpoint, it could be the difference between me making a T20 comp around the world or a international squad here and there if I can be the backup keeper. So it'd be silly not to kind of pursue that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the questions that I've been trying to ask the different clients that have been on doing these videos is plan. We're almost now coming towards a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, where the lockdowns are starting to be eased, and the thought that there may be some professional sport and in other walks of life, people are starting to go back to work. Have you had any kind of idea from the coaches of when that might be for yourselves?
We haven't had anything concrete yet, which is obviously the most important thing. So it's all up in the air our side, cricket-wise, but we're definitely getting closer. There's obviously a lot of conversations going about, especially between the ECB and the counties. Obviously, the England boys are back in training this week, which is great signs for us and for county cricket. It looks like they're going to be going ahead with their games, pretty much on schedule in that sense within the next month or two. Again, and they're obviously going to be based at the Aegeus Bowl. So I think that we're just waiting for the official lines of communication to lock in what training looks like, post COVID-19 and all the steps you have to follow there. And then obviously cricket, it's probably well known it's not the most affluent game of all time, the clubs themselves especially. So it's obviously a big financial kind of push on how we look moving forward. So there's a lot of details that have to be ironed out, but we're definitely getting closer. And as the government have said, and it's been released in the press the last few weeks, we're allowed to move on with training. So once we kind of get the go ahead with that start date, I'm sure we'll be back in sooner than we know.
Yeah, and I think the plan is for England to play some test matches and one-day internationals between Pakistan and the West Indies. And you mentioned they're going to use the Aegeus Bowl. So again, a venue that's got a hotel on site that they can create these biosecure environments, which is a good thing. And obviously, if test matches are being played, then broadcast rights and revenue streams filter down, which is very important for you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, I think it's between the Aegeus Bowl and Old Trafford. So we know there's ways of getting around it. Obviously, county cricket, it's not going to be quite as simple trying to run an 18-team game. But they're kind of just ironing out the details. Like, you're not allowed to use saliva now, which obviously, as a batter, I'm not bothered about anyway. Probably makes my job a bit easier if you can't shine the balls up. Just turning up to training in your car, getting your stuff done. Probably one thing I think some of the older guys in the county scene will be, rolling around thinking about as batters, just having to hit the balls back at the coaches and not picking them up and passing it to them. Anyone who's plays cricket, I think that there's nothing more annoying you can do is just slap the balls back at the bowlers in the net. So it's going to be pretty weird.
Doing that for years.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's just those little things, and there's going to be tweaks to our game for seeing future, if not permanently. So it's just something as a sport we got to deal with, just like any other sport, and there's always been tweaks over time. So it's just about making sure we understand that and trying to get over those hurdles as quick as possible.
Yeah, and for you, I guess now when we do get back to the new norm, whatever that looks like, eventually things will go back to normal. But for you personally, in terms of aspirations of the next step, obviously, it turns out you're not going to miss as much cricket as you thought you might do with the injury. So for you, when you do get back on the park, I guess looking to try and kick on, further develop and consolidate the performances you had last season with Hampshire, and really looking to try and break into into that England Lions squad. Yeah,
absolutely. Obviously, the England representation is the first on the top of the list for any aspiring cricketer. And the next step for me is hopefully England Lions. And as you said, it's just about keeping putting numbers up on the board. I feel like I'm obviously a little step closer, at least after the last season and my move to Hampshire. I feel like I'm now at I think people don't like to say it, but fashionable club. I think it does help. think it'd be silly not to. And playing around guys who are involved in that level shows me where I need to be at. And then there's obviously the second avenue where, there's so many tournaments around the world and the 100 competition and all that kind of stuff. So there's incentive to really push your game and up yourself there. And that's something I want to be involved in. And obviously was gutted to kind of miss out on at the draft last year. But I've only had myself to blame, putting up a few more numbers, and hopefully I'll be close to that. So yeah, it's just about, once I get back out in the park, is being as consistent as possible. I think anyone who knows me, and I'm sure you pulled your hair out at times, the only thing I lack is probably a bit of consistency. I think kind of the rest of my game speaks for itself. It's just about putting up consistent big numbers. That's something I'm striving for. So it's been a nice time to kind of reset and really think about where I need to go with my game. So hopefully when I can get back hitting balls and back out on the park, I've got a clear goal to get where I want to be.
Listen, I'm sure you'll get there when we will eventually get back to normality and you guys playing cricket again. You're in a great position. You were in great form last year, and hopefully you can, get those white ball numbers up and kick on and facilitate that ambition of being the next Welshman to play for England. I'm sure that's something not only you, but your family. I know they follow you around, and you got a good loyal team of supporters there. Your aunties and uncles, they'll come along and watch you. I'm sure that'd make them all very proud.
That's the plan. So hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later. Anyway. Yeah,
fingers crossed. Okay, so look. Just to finish, I've been doing some quick fire questions with some of the other clients that we've had on from varying sports. So we'll rattle through these quickly. Your nickname amongst the lads?
Down in Hampshire, the current favourite one is Barry.
Right.
Purely, just purely bred through one of our boys, Sam Northeast. He thinks he's basically bigger than the club, couldn't be bothered to learn my proper name and couldn't say it, and also is potentially the poshest boy on the circuit. So we suffer from that a little bit down there in the posh boy. So they went Barry because it's a little bit easier to roll off the tongue, put it that way.
Barry, okay. And it's the Don.
The Don. Yeah, that's obviously an easy one.
The best player you've played with?
I think different guys at different times. One guy, probably Colin Ingram. There was the few years in white ball. I don't think anyone, I haven't seen it, and I know a lot of guys I play with still to this day have never seen his kind of consistency in ball striking as he has done the last few years. And it's awesome to see him capitalising and go around the world playing in those T20 comps. But also probably Dale Staines have got to be up there. I'm not sure there's nothing quite like the sight of him running in and bowling, is there really, if you're a cricket purist? So it's a bit of a treat to be able to play with him.
Okay. And played against, best player you've played against?
I'm probably going to go Sangakkara. I specifically remember one knock at Cardiff where it was basically been raining all afternoon, so the wicket was wet, slick. It was reduced over his game, and Marchand was bowling absolute rockets at the time, well into the 90s. And first ball he walked out after roughing up, I think it was Stoneman and maybe Dom Sibley at the time, so two proper players. He stood up on a back of the length ball and just nudged it like a rocket straight back past him, and everyone stood there, thought we're playing a different game.
Yeah, class player Sangakkara. Favourite ground?
That's a good question. I'm probably going to say the Oval, purely probably because every time we play there, whatever day of the week it is, it's packed out in a T20, which is obviously in county cricket's rare treat. And I had a couple of runs there in the past. Probably my favourite watching ground's probably been Newlands down Cape Town, sitting on the bank with a Castellaga there. You can't really beat that, can you?
Great spot, Newlands. Roommates over the years?
God, good or bad?
Oh, let's just say neutral. Who've they been?
Who've they been? I'm trying to think. So, funny enough, I feel like me and Joe Weatherly spent a lot of time together as youngsters. We were quite a similar bloke, so we used to share kind of the captaincy and bat in the same position and do all the same things together. So we had a pretty good relationship. He's pretty switched on and tidy, etc. Got to be the worst without a shadow of a doubt, and he won't mind me saying this. One of my best mates is Lucas Carey, also a client of yours. We grown up same school, same town together, but he's an absolute shambles of a human at times, to put it politely.
Yeah. Career low?
Low. A couple of, I think it was difficult to put finger point on one kind of exact position, but I think there was a run in Championship cricket probably a year or so ago where, and I think most cricketers have been there, I felt like I couldn't hold a bat. I think, I went off 3 or 4 low scores. I was dropped, but pushed back to the second team, and then, brought back in almost without any form under my belt as well, which is, I think, sometimes can be just as bad. It was a pretty dark time. I think it was just that lack of confidence and questioning the way I played. And I think obviously coming out of the back of that, feeling a bit stronger is, I'm sticking to that game where this is what's got me here. This is why I'm good, and not changing that regardless of how dark the times go.
Yeah. And then career high?
I think it's probably a pretty easy one. Obviously, a single knock has got to be my double 100 at Colwyn Bay.
Yeah.
But there's been a few other points. Finals day T20 with Glamorgan, our Lord's final with Hampshire, and my first 100 for Hampshire was a big moment for me as well, really. So there's quite a few to pick from, luckily.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully that one day where we get over the line in a final, I think that's probably going to be one that sticks with me eventually.
And you've partially answered my last question, favourite innings.
Oh, sorry. I've just jumped ahead there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll say definitely it's got to be that one.
Yeah.
It's just one of those days, and hopefully I have a few more of them over the course of my career, but where you're just completely in the zone and anything you do can't go wrong. I kind of had a similar feeling this year. I got a big 100 against Warwickshire against arguably a better bowling attack. So that was a nice touch as well, with a couple of international bowlers in there. So I've had a couple of good days, just not as many as I would have liked.
No. Listen, Knight, thank you very much for taking the time to come on and have a little chat with us for our little in-house lockdown library series. It's very much appreciated. And hopefully I'll be able to catch up with you again soon when we're allowed, I guess, for a coffee if you're in Pontcanna.
Absolutely, that'll be a treat, wouldn't it? Thanks for having me, but no
problems.